would continue to...
Betty Broderick remembers the day, November 5th of last year, the day she said she finally had it.
And I was just standing in that kitchen saying, you know, Jesus Christ, I'm turning 42 years old, and I've been put through this bullshit since I was 35. 7 years of my life wasted.
For the past 2 days, Betty Broderick has been telling the court about her bitter 5-year divorce war with prominent attorney Daniel Broderick, how she says he left her destitute, without custody of their children, and how he left her for a younger woman. It was now more than she could bear.
I was just a mess. Everything just came down on me, and I just couldn't stand it another minute. And that's what I wrote on the stuff, is I just can't stand this. I'm telling people I'm a child molester and I'm crazy and I'm an unfit mother.
Unable to sleep, Betty went to the home of her ex-husband and his new wife, Linda, and entered their house with a handgun in her purse. And although she admits shooting Dan and his bride of 7 months to death, she doesn't remember pulling the trigger.
I went into the room to talk to them or to wake them up or something, and they moved and I moved and it was over. I remember the real loud noise 5 times, but I didn't clearly remember it then. I mean, I just remember the noise.
Later that day, she turned herself in. Betty Broderick is on trial for 2 counts of first-degree murder, but she contends shooting Daniel and Linda was in self-defense after years of torment. The trial continues tomorrow with Betty Broderick still on the stand. Marianne Cucci, News 8.
This trial has been standing room only, and today it was even more so, as they came to hear the woman who has admitted she shot her husband give her side of the story.
Dan told a lot of his friends the night that he met me. I didn't find this out till later, that he was going to marry me the night that he met me.
In fact, the Betty Broderick story, as told by Betty Broderick, started off really quite ordinary.
He was the decision maker. And I was happy to finally be married. I wanted to be married very much all my life, and I was looking forward to cooking and fixing up the house and cleaning and having children.
Broderick told how she worked several jobs at a time, even while she was pregnant, putting Dan through medical and law school. She was composed until the subject of her children.
Was there a second child born?
Yes.
And was that
Go ahead.
Broderick told how when her husband started making what she called major money as a medical malpractice attorney, he started looking unhappy, and how he finally told her.
A lot of this was my fault because I was old and fat and ugly and boring and stupid. And that, you know, he just wasn't having any fun in life anymore. If you're old, fat, ugly, boring, and stupid, you try to be younger. And you go and try to get wrinkles taken off your face that weren't even there. You try and get your teeth fixed, because I have one tooth that's a little tiny millimeter of something crooked, and I tried to be perfect. Absolutely flawlessly perfect for Dan Broderick.
By now, Dan Broderick had hired as his assistant Linda Kolkina, and soon Betty said it was clear the two were more than just working together. Betty remembers her 37th birthday spent without Dan.
And when the kids went to bed, I slit my wrists and swallowed every pill I could find in the house.
And later the same month, when Betty went to surprise Dan for his birthday and she found evidence in his office that he and Linda had been partying.
So I threw all his clothes in the backyard and I put gasoline on them and I lit them. And I waited for him to come home for the home-cooked roast beef dinner he wanted for his birthday.
When Dan finally admitted to her he had been having an affair with his assistant, he said that she, Betty, was crazy.
He kept telling me that I was sick and that I was crazy and that I needed help. And he told the children that I was sick.
And how did that affect you?
It made me feel sick.
At the same time, Dan was still sending Betty flowers. But within months, she said, he sold their only joint property from beneath her, their home. When he wouldn't discuss the matter, she drove her car into his house.
I had no one to talk to. I just wanted to talk to Dan, and I bammed my car into his door.
Betty said Dan called the police, and she wound up in county mental health for 3 days. Betty Broderick always complained she couldn't get a fair hearing in this town when her husband was alive. Now that he's dead, she is getting her day in court. Lorraine Kimmel, News 8, downtown.
I reach the Broderick, and I'm out and about, so leave your message at the beep. Thanks.
When Elizabeth Broderick heard her husband's girlfriend and later wife on Dan Broderick's phone answer machine, she followed the instructions and left messages, more often than not, according to the prosecutor, obscene ones.
I have very important things to ask you. You're making me mad. I'll kill you.
That was tame compared to other messages played during cross-examination. Prosecutor Carrie Wells asked Broderick if she put her 7-year-old son, Rhett, up to leaving this message for his father.
You pay Linda to sleep with you. Goodbye.
I didn't have Rhett do that, but I heard Rhett do that, and I've heard for years that Rhett did that.
You were right there when Rhett made that call, weren't you?
No.
You dared him to make the call.
No.
Wells kept attacking Broderick's previous testimony, like claims that Dan had given Elizabeth a black eye.
Isn't it true that you told reporters that he never touched you? He never
Well, that's
physically
not
abused
true,
you?
is it? We have 5 children. He's obviously touched me.
You've indicated that he never abused you. He never hit you.
That's not true either. I mean, it's somewhere in the middle.
When Broderick showed the prosecutor the scars from what Broderick said was a suicide attempt over Dan, the prosecutor said she couldn't see the scars. The judge suggested, and Broderick agreed to show the jury.
I used a man's razor and a right-handed, and I cut myself 3 times on these blue lines.
And when it came to Broderick's claims that she couldn't take her children because she didn't get enough money from her ex, Wells produced clothing bills.
On December 8th, 1987, did you write a $1,000 check to Nordstrom's?
If that's what it says, yes.
Is that your check, ma'am?
Yes.
On December 15th, 1987, did you write a $1,000 check to Neiman Marcus?
Yes.
The total for clothing that year, $37,000. Wells asked Elizabeth if it wasn't true that Dan was afraid of her, afraid because Elizabeth constantly threatened his life.
Why would he be afraid of me?
Testimony continues tomorrow. Lorraine Kimmel, News 8, downtown. Elizabeth Broderick looks drawn in this 3rd week of trial, even though her attorney continues putting on the stand. Friends clearly sympathetic to her life before and after her separation from Dan Broderick.
I mean, if you wanted to find the perfect mother that beamed around her children, that would be Betty Broderick.
Defense attorney Jack Early also put on the stand Broderick's maid of a dozen years, who recalled how Broderick cried constantly when she didn't have her children.
No dormía en las noches llorando, llorando.
All the time, in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, when there were calls from the children, she would spend the night crying and crying.
Prosecutor Carrie Wells questioned the woman about the time Dan Broderick's clothes were burned.
And Mrs. Broderick told you that it was Mr. Broderick who had burned his own clothes, correct?
Y la señora Broderick le dijo a usted que era el señor Broderick que había quemado su propia ropa, ¿correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
Broderick herself testified that she burned the clothes in a fit of anger. And then there was the black eye incident. Broderick says Dan hit her.
And I noticed that she had been crying, and it looked like she'd been hit.
Did she have a black eye or a redness one?
I thought she did.
But on cross-examination,
Did she ever tell you that Dan Broderick had hit her?
No, she has never told me that he has.
Broderick did smile briefly today when a friend said that she and Dan looked like they belonged on the top of a wedding cake. More testimony tomorrow. Lorraine Kimmel, News 8, downtown.